So you've put your player characters on a boat, and like all boat journeys in Dungeons and Dragons, an encounter happens. And in most cases, most of the time, a boat encounter in Dungeons and Dragons takes exactly the same format. Some monster, in this case some Sahwagin, jump up onto the deck. In this case I've got a split deck arrangement going on. But they jump up onto the deck and there's a deck fight. And I think I've done that encounter a few too many times now, so I'm going to suggest some alternatives. One encounter I did recently in one of my campaigns was I had the boat run into some rocks, and through the rocks, the hole in the bottom of the hull, out came some water elementals. On that occasion I only used 4 of them, but I have an extra model now, so way! And this was a great encounter because it took part in the hold of the ship. At the time I ran the encounter, there was some crew on the deck, and the rest of the crew were resting, getting ready for, their shift. So when the monsters came in through the hold of the ship, they were able to do a great deal of damage as the players rushed to react and get down the steps in order to meet the challenge. And of course they all arrived at different times. By the time these guys had got through the boat, they were several turns behind as they sprinted towards the problem they were facing. And in that particular encounter, the players knew that taking down a single water elemental was difficult. Their primary mission was to get the water elementals off the boat. So they were trying to force them back and push them out through the hole. One of them even sort of sacrificed themselves by holding on to the water elementals and just charging through the hole in the ship, whilst the rest of the crew then started repairing the ship, and he was left to try and swim free in the ocean by himself. The point here is that the top deck, or decks in this case, aren't the only place to enter a ship. You can enter on any deck at any point. The Sahagin, for instance, could have come in through the gun ports of the ship. Boats in D&D are often seen as just transport from one location to another, but they can be encounter locations in and of themselves. One idea for that, for example, if you're on a ship of the line, it could be a royal inspection on the ship itself, so the players need to make sure it's shipshape, especially if it's a surprise visit from a royal. This can work really well if the players have already had dealings with the royal court, and that the monarch is in some way disappointed with the condition of the ship. We can also take some ideas from history. What if the players are asleep in their cabin, and then the next day the crew's vanished, and we've got the quest of the Mary Celeste. Naval battles against 2 opposing fleets can be quite interesting, mostly in a narrative sense, although having the players involved in that and manning gun ports and actually rolling a few dice in there to decide a few critical actions in the battle can be quite fun, especially if you add in things from the Spanish Armada like fire ships and so forth, and give players control over some of the tactics of what actually happens in the battle once those things have happened. Or you could just go outright Mary Rose and have the boat sink the moment they get on it. But perhaps once the ship sinks, it keeps on going, just sailing underwater. And who knows what they might find down there? Perhaps even the lost city of Atlantis. Or a mighty Aboleth. Consider this, an underwater location is the perfect environment for vampires. They don't need to breathe and there's no direct sunlight. Maybe they have lots of lizard men enthralled to be their servants, or perhaps even with ghoulish tendencies.